Rotarians and guests, I'm assuming that you all read the bulletin and you've read the CV of Sharyn Brewer. So can I just start by just giving you a very, very brief story. 1981, 33 years ago, I was transferred to Darwin, and after my arrival there, within a couple of months, I joined the Darwin Rotary Club, or the Rotary Club of Darwin as it should be known as. And one of their community projects was to set aside, for each member, set aside a week, a year, to assist in delivering meals to Meals on Wheels clients in and around Darwin. That I did, and it was interesting because the Red Cross in Darwin ran Meals on Wheels up there. That was back 33 years ago, and they still do today. So I rocked up with my car on the Monday, got backed in, got the tucker and put it in the boot, and off we went with another person who knew the route and delivered the meals. Now let me tell you that the people we delivered to were really quite young. I would say the average age would have been certainly less than 50, probably in the 40s. And a lot of them had problems with alcohol. So the meal that we delivered to them was probably the only meal they're going to get for the day. And the accommodation in which they lived, I would say, was pretty ordinary as well. So that was my first introduction to Meals on Wheels, and I thought what a great organisation it was to assist these people who really, really did need some looking after, because you certainly need some nutritious food if you're going to have a few too many drinks, that's for sure. So that was my introduction to Meals on Wheels, and now I'm going to introduce you to the CEO of Meals on Wheels in South Australia, who is a very intelligent, bright and accommodating person. She is well respected by everybody who ever comes across her, and she's, I have to say, she makes my job as President of Meals on Wheels in South Australia extremely easy. So without any further ado, can I introduce you to the CEO of Meals on Wheels, Sharyn Brewer.
While my assistant warms up the PowerPoint. When I started working at Meals on Wheels, I actually thought the Rotary Club of Adelaide ran it. And that's because the person who first recruited me was the then President, Rotarian Tony Robins. My interview panel was the President of Meals on Wheels and Rotarian Leon Holmes. I had my handover with my predecessor, Rotarian Cam Pearce, met the board, who, amongst whose number was Rotarian Dr. Bob Hecker. We were doing a building project at the time, so I met our architect, Rotarian Simon Drew. And within the first couple of weeks, we had the Warradale Branch Kitchen's 20th anniversary, so I met Rotarians Tom Hoff, Rod Ferrier and others. So I certainly thought that the Rotary Club of Adelaide was very, very much involved in Meals on Wheels, and I haven't lost that impression. What I'm going to talk to you today about is how Rotary and Meals on Wheels have been strengthening communities in this state from Meals on Wheels' perspective for 60 of the 90 years that this club's been in operation. Just having some technical difficulties. We're not on. We are on.
Right arrow.
Yeah. Not working.
Right arrow on the laptop.
Okay.
Sorry. Oh, here comes the minion now.
Technical minion.
Technical minion.
Oh, it's off.
Right.
You carry on and I'll just...
Okay. So right about now there will be a knock on more than 4,000 doors around South Australia. And on the other side of the door there'll be a couple of volunteers, and not only are they going to be bringing a meal to the person who's the resident in the home, but they'll be having a bit of a chat and a yarn and thinking, just observing, is this person looking well? Did they answer the door when we expected them to? And that's been going on in our state now for 60 years. It's a fantastic effort. Today I'm going to talk to you about how Meals on Wheels SA strengthens community, the shared history between our organisation and your Rotary Club, and how together we can build stronger communities today for tomorrow. Meals on Wheels is a name that's familiar to about half of the people in the room in a very practical sense, and others probably know a bit about us. So I'm going to outline some aspects that might be new to you or remind you and refresh your memories. Meals on Wheels as we know it in Australia started here in Port Adelaide on the 9th of August 1954, 60 years ago this week. And it grew out of the vision of one formidable woman, Miss Doris Taylor. Now, some of you might know about Doris. She's a South Australian icon. Doris was a woman who was confined to a wheelchair after a childhood accident. She had in some ways was quite handicapped herself. But she was always thinking more about others. And during the Depression, she started a soup kitchen for young school children. And as she grew older, she was visiting places like Glenside and the Home for the Incurables, now known as Julia Farr Centre. And she was appalled at the conditions that faced people in residential care. And she felt that there must be something more that could be done to help people to remain vital, remain part of their local communities. And the thing that she hit on, it's one of those basic things that we need for survival. She thought about, well, what if they had access to a decent meal at least once a day? Would that make the difference for them? And so she had a vision for Meals on Wheels that started with meals, but it got much bigger than that. She saw Meals on Wheels as the beginning and centre of a home service scheme, a scheme which could meet all the needs of the aged and the infirm people and enable them to live their lives out in the community with the maximum of independence, freedom and comfort possible. And she wrote that in 1955. She went on to develop the service into what we claim as the precursor to domiciliary care and community care today. There were podiatrists and social workers, laundresses, cleaners, hairdressers, and the mobile library that she started was in operation for more than 50 years. So Doris's original vision and purpose remains true today, although we might use some more contemporary language. In 2014, Meals on Wheels SA supports members of the community to live independently, and we do it through providing nourishing meals to maintain people's health and well-being, offering them social contact, and recognising, responding and building on their capacity to meet their nutritional and other needs that will increase their well-being. And in doing that through a voluntary workforce, we strengthen communities, both by allowing people to remain living as part of their community and engaging our volunteers in community work. Meals on Wheels has got some staggering numbers. In terms of our reach, we have 88 branches in communities around South Australia, 8,500 volunteers. We're delivering around about 4,200 meals each day, which adds up to around 1 million meals every year. And since inception, we've delivered nearly 47 million meals in 60 years. That's a hell of a lot of hot dinners. Meals on Wheels is across South Australia. And we cover all suburbs in Adelaide and most of the towns in South Australia. Each of those 88 branches is managed by volunteers. They are the people who make the operations happen. And through their good works and efforts, we're cooking over 650,000 meals are cooked daily by volunteers and adding up over the year, and the remainder are provided through often public hospitals, some private hospitals, some aged care facilities, Cadell Training Centre, I always mention that one because it's a bit unique, and also our Cook Chill production kitchen. So Meals on Wheels revolves around meals. We provide a 3-course hot and ready to eat meal or a frozen meal which people can heat when it's convenient for them, and we deliver it to the door for $7.50. But we know that the food needs to be good for people and it needs to be great to eat, otherwise we're not meeting our objective of supporting their wellness. So providing meals maintains and improves people's nutrition. And we would all appreciate that if you can maintain your nutritional intake, your overall health and well-being will be maintained. There's some really good evidence that shows that for older people, if their diet is well balanced, that they're less likely to go to hospital. And if they do go to hospital, that they'll stay there for a shorter period of time. They'll also recover better and they'll have greater independence. But Meals on Wheels is more than just a meal. We're also offering social contact to people, and we're providing them with some peace of mind, checking that they're safe and well, and following up in cases where they're not. And this is particularly important for people's families, many of whom don't live nearby them anymore. So 60 years on, we still peel and chop veggies by hand and we wear unbecoming hats. And we still rely on engaging volunteers to run our operations. So what's in it for the volunteers? Well, first of all, they have a sense of shared purpose and belonging, and I think that's one of the things that resonates with Rotarians, and one of the reasons why so many Rotarians are also part of Meals on Wheels. They also have an opportunity to give back to their community. Many people sort of say, look, it's a way for me to keep in touch with respected elders in my town, you know, someone who might have been my high school teacher or a friend's parent or the local newsagent, and I can just drop in once a fortnight, once a week when it's my turn and see how they're getting on. And people often will say, well, of course I'm going to help Meals on Wheels because I want Meals on Wheels to be there when I'm in my late 80s or 90s or hundreds and I need some help with meals. The volunteers who are involved with delivering meals really make a connection and a relationship with their clients. And I was talking with some volunteers this morning who said how saddened they were when regular people weren't receiving deliveries anymore. And often that's because the person's passed away or they've entered into care. But people get to, you know, having a conversation, you get to hear about the client's grandchildren and great-grandchildren and some of their history and what they've done during their life. I think the Rotarians here from the Whyalla kitchen and others would attest to the fact that through the kitchen work and delivery work that we form fantastic teams and relationships, and you get to hang out with people on a weekly basis and have a great amount of fun while preparing the meals. And an emerging reason for people to volunteer and enjoy volunteering with Meals on Wheels is because they get to maintain some of the skills that they've developed through their working career, or indeed develop new skills. And we have created a pathway for people to re-enter the workforce through developing skills at Meals on Wheels. It's not necessarily in catering, but it's those interpersonal skills that people get through working alongside others, a very diverse group in age and background. So now I'm going to talk a bit about Rotary and Meals on Wheels. And you'll see that even our logos are similar. I'll talk about the history of Meals on Wheels, the continuous community service projects that have been ongoing, some recent projects and some future opportunities. We share history at Meals on Wheels South Australia with more than 31 Rotary clubs in districts 9500 and 9520, and many of those relationships span more than 40 years. One of the stories that we really like is an example of the Prospect Rotary Club. So the Prospect Rotary Club's been involved with Meals on Wheels for 57, nearly 58 years now. In 1957, Doris Taylor initiated a meeting in Prospect, and at which many members of the Rotary Club were present, as well as members of the council. So the council agreed to provide some land. They donated land and £200 towards equipment. The Rotarians raised funds and rolled up their sleeves to build and fit out the kitchen. The kitchen was built in 6 months with the expertise of Rotarians, including an architect, a building supplier, 2 builders, a painter and a plumber. And so Rotarians handed over a fully fitted out and freehold kitchen to Meals on Wheels that supplied over 1 million meals to their community to date. But that's not all. 56 years on, continuously, Rotarians have also served as members of the committee, as volunteer cooks, as deliverers and as committee members. And the Prospect Rotary Club sponsored or chartered the Rotary Club of Salisbury, and the very first project that they had was building us a kitchen at Salisbury, and that kitchen's also still going strong and has just undergone a major refit. And of course, there's lots of familiar faces. If they'll come up. Just to name a few. So, members of this Rotary Club have served as volunteers, as board members, as presidents. My 2 predecessors, I didn't mention Grant Andrews, and of course Rotarian Ralph Arthur was the chair of the state executive for a 20-year period. Yes, fantastic service. One example that we'd like to share comes from the Meals on Wheels history, and just to read out to you, in September it was reported that the Rotary Club of Adelaide had decided to establish a Doris Taylor Memorial as its main effort for that year, and this would be an annual prize for students in social work, the best social work student at the then South Australian Institute of Technology. So in May 1969, in memory of Doris, the Rotary Club presented to the Institute a cheque for $420, and that would provide a permanent annual prize of books to the outstanding student. And that's about $3,000 in today's team. So past President Bert Clarkson and his team were very generous. There's a bit more of that story that's not on the slide, and that is that somewhere along the line, the university put the money in the bank and didn't actually buy the books. And so it was in the mid-1980s that they discovered this fund and decided, I believe with consultation with the club here, that they would establish a Doris Taylor collection in the university library. And I know as a student at the university that I certainly did refer to those books. So that was one very early project. Some other projects include your recognition of volunteers, and Meals on Wheels volunteers have featured from time to time there. The lady pictured is Elaine Traeger, a very beloved volunteer at Meals on Wheels. And we're thrilled to be the beneficiary, one of the beneficiaries of the celebration of the motorcar event. So the funds that have been generously donated to Meals on Wheels are going to be used to kickstart our meal sponsorship program. And this is a way for us to be supporting members of the community who are finding even $7.50 for a meal a little bit too much for their circumstances. And so we are concerned that there are people, whether they're older people or younger people, who are doing without Meals on Wheels when it could really help to support their health and independence, and we want to be able to offer them, if you like, a discount on their meal, and so we're looking for donors to support our meal sponsorship program. It's a bit easier for me to click those all through and then speak to you about them. There will be many, many more opportunities to work together in the future, whether it's your individual service as a volunteer or as a club. We've always got ideas for projects. Our volunteers have comfortable amenities, but in some areas they're rather dated, and perhaps there's not somewhere for the group of people to enjoy a morning tea together. There are many businesses that are becoming involved in Meals on Wheels as part of our corporate volunteering program, and we're open to new ideas and new ventures. And of course, as I said, the ongoing community service with drivers, deliverers and kitchen hands. So I'd like to thank you very much for your invitation to speak today. And we look forward to a continuing relationship with the Rotary Club of Adelaide for decades to come.
Well, thank you, Sharyn. And Rotarians, any questions you'd like to address to Sharyn, please? I'm sure there are. Oh, sorry.
Can I just share an anecdote? Just before Christmas a few years back, I was driving through North Adelaide, and there's a lady in Go Street who was in a wheelchair, and her main occupation was making cards. And I still treasure that card, which says, "Merry Christmas to the wheels for meals."
Fantastic.
Okay.
You haven't mentioned the organisations outside of South Australia. What relationship do you have with the cordial relationships?
Oh, that's a very good question. Meals on Wheels, I'm just going to lift this up a little bit. There we go. Meals on Wheels is an organisation that has spread beyond South Australia and indeed internationally after Doris established our service in South Australia. So there are Meals on Wheels services operating in Queensland, in New South Wales, in Victoria, Tasmania, WA and the Northern Territory. Because Australia is a federated country, Meals on Wheels is developed in a federated way, and so Meals on Wheels South Australia has a structure that's rather different to our sisters in the other states. In Queensland and New South Wales, each service is separately incorporated and they join a banner organisation, Queensland Meals on Wheels or New South Wales Meals on Wheels, and there are some other varying relationships, particularly through local government in Victoria and in WA. So we join together under the banner of Australian Meals on Wheels Association, of which Leon and I are the South Australian representatives to the board. And collectively, we've got a National Meals on Wheels Day on the 27th of August. So collectively, something like 80,000 volunteers, 14 million meals a year, and probably about 60,000 individual clients supported.
One last question, Tony.
Sharyn, that was a great presentation. There's an art to having very successful volunteer organisations. Some are tremendously successful and others aren't. What's the difference?
I was going to say thank you, Mrs. Dix, for that question. That was a bit of a curly one, Tony. I think for Meals on Wheels, I think the secret to Meals on Wheels success, or if you like, the recipe for success at Meals on Wheels, has been a number of points. One is that what we ask of volunteers, or the opportunities for volunteers to get involved, for the vast majority of volunteers, it's not a big commitment. For some people, it's a matter of doing a delivery round in Sojourner or Cummins or Blanchetown, it might take them an hour every 6 weeks or perhaps every 4 weeks. So it's a quite small but consistent commitment that they make. People who are involved in meal preparation might be donating 4 or 5 hours a week if they're going in once a week. Some go in a little bit more often than that. And those people find a niche. And so somebody might make the best gravy or the best custard, or they might be a fantastic soup cook, or they might just be really good at doing the washing up. And so there's usually a role that fits people's talents, and so they join in and have the fun of being part of that meal preparation team. The ones who I think hold it all together and are incredibly precious to us are the volunteers who take a role on our branch committees and who take responsibility for overseeing things as complicated as food safety and work health and safety, manage the finances locally, organise the rosters, recruit new volunteers, and keep in contact with the clients. And some of those people can be putting in 20, 30 hours a week, bless them. And it is becoming increasingly difficult to fill those roles. But in each and every community, that group of people, which might be between 6 and 15 or 16 people, that group sort of holds their own Meals on Wheels community together and keeps things ticking over. And I'm constantly, thunderstruck at how effectively and efficiently we operate with on the goodwill of members of the community. So that I think has been the secret of our success, and it does come down to individuals and their connection with the mission of Meals on Wheels, the purpose of Meals on Wheels, and that's the thing that sort of keeps them turning up week after week.
Well, thank you, Sharyn, and on your behalf, Rotarians, I'd like to thank Sharyn very, very much for speaking to us today and outlining what Meals on Wheels does around the place. Now, hopefully, we've gathered a few more volunteers from that speech too, so hopefully you've suddenly said, oh look, I think I might join a branch somewhere. So on behalf of Rotary Club of Adelaide, Sharyn, thank you very much for speaking to us today.
Thank you.
Don't go away.